At some point, someone in your life told you that renting is throwing money away. Maybe it was a parent, a financial article, your real estate agent, a well-meaning friend who just bought their first home. This idea is so widespread that most people accept it without ever questioning whether the math actually backs it up. Here is the truth. Renting is not automatically throwing money away, and buying is not automatically the smart financial move.
Renting offers great flexibility, but buying builds long-term equity.
Both statements depend entirely on your specific market, your financial situation, how long you plan to stay, and the current relationship between home prices and rents. At today's interest rates and home prices in most major markets, the math frequently favors renting, sometimes by a significant margin. This is not an anti-homeownership video. Owning a home is genuinely excellent in the right conditions. Today, we find out what those conditions are. My name is Rich Future You.
The single most useful tool for evaluating whether to rent or buy in any market is called the price-to-rent ratio. It is simple to calculate and genuinely clarifying. Take the purchase price of a home you are considering. Divide it by the annual rent for a comparable property in the same area. The result is your price-to-rent ratio. Here is how to interpret it. A ratio below 15 means buying is typically the better financial decision. You are paying a relatively low multiple of what rent would cost. Equity builds reasonably, and the monthly cost comparison usually favors owning within a few years. A ratio between 15 and 20 is the gray zone. Buying can still make sense depending on how long you plan to stay, your local market trajectory, and your personal financial situation. This is where the full decision framework matters most.
A ratio above 20 means renting is usually the stronger financial move in the near to medium term. You would be paying a large multiple of rent value for the privilege of owning, and the math of building equity through appreciation versus investing the equivalent amount often favors renting. How do you find comparable rent? Check current rental listings for similar-sized properties in the same neighborhood. This calculation takes about 10 minutes and tells you more about your market than almost anything else.
Let me address the most common argument for buying. You are building equity instead of paying rent to a landlord. This is true, but it is significantly more complicated than most people understand. In the first years of a 30-year mortgage at current interest rates, the vast majority of each payment goes to interest, not equity. In year one of a 7% mortgage, approximately 85 to 88% of each payment is interest. You are mostly paying the bank, not building ownership in the early years. Meanwhile, your landlord is not getting your full rent payment as pure profit either. They are paying property taxes, insurance, maintenance, and often a mortgage themselves. Some of your rent is funding those costs. Some portion is profit. But the blanket statement that renting is throwing money away while buying builds wealth ignores what your mortgage payment is actually going to in the early years.
Your rent is not all profit for the landlord. It pays for the mortgage, taxes, and maintenance. The blanket statement is too simple.
Equity does build, just more slowly than most people realize, and primarily through two mechanisms: forced savings, as the principal slowly decreases over years, and price appreciation, if the market rises. The second one is not guaranteed. The first one is real, but very slow in the early years. The honest framing: buying builds equity over time. Renting gives you flexibility and often frees up capital for other investments. Neither is automatically superior.
Here is the argument for renting that almost nobody makes: the opportunity cost of your down payment. If you buy a $350,000 home with a 20% down payment, you are putting $70,000 into that home as your down payment. That $70,000 is now illiquid. It is sitting in the home as equity, not accessible without selling or refinancing. What if instead you rented and invested that $70,000 in a low-cost index fund, earning an average of 7 to 10% annually? In 10 years, that $70,000 could grow to approximately $138,000 to $182,000. Over 20 years, $270,000 to $420,000. That is the opportunity cost of the down payment sitting in home equity rather than a compounding investment account.
This does not mean renting is always better. A home can appreciate significantly too. But in a period of high home prices and high interest rates, like the current environment in many markets, the appreciation needed to outperform a well-invested down payment is substantial and not guaranteed. The point is not that one is better. The point is that buying has a real, calculable financial cost that is rarely included in the conversation. The most useful calculation in the entire rent versus buy decision is the break-even timeline. The number of years you need to stay in a home before buying outperforms renting financially. The break-even calculation accounts for closing costs when you buy, typically 2 to 5% of the purchase price, the difference between your monthly mortgage cost and what you would pay in rent, the equity you build over time, the investment return you could have earned on your down payment, and the appreciation of the home. At today's rates and prices in most major U.S. markets, the break-even timeline is typically somewhere between 5 and 9 years. In high-cost cities like New York, San Francisco, or Seattle, it can extend to 10 to 15 years or longer.
What this means practically, if you are buying a home and planning to stay for less than 5 years in most markets, you are almost certainly going to lose money compared to renting. The transaction costs, interest in early years, and lack of time for appreciation to compound simply do not work in your favor below that threshold. If you are planning to stay 7 to 10 years or longer, and the price-to-rent ratio is not extreme, buying becomes increasingly compelling. The break-even passes, equity accumulates meaningfully, and the stability and control of ownership add genuine value beyond the financial math. Here are the 5 specific conditions where renting is genuinely the smarter financial choice. Condition 1, your local price-to-rent ratio is above 20. The market is overvalued relative to rents, and the math strongly favors renting. Condition 2, you plan to stay less than 5 years. Transaction costs and interest-heavy early payments make short-duration buying extremely expensive. Condition 3, buying would require more than 25% of your take-home pay for the all-in monthly cost. The financial stress and constraint of an overstretched mortgage costs more than money. Condition 4, you do not have a 20% down payment plus a fully funded emergency fund plus closing costs. Buying undercapitalized puts you one emergency away from serious financial trouble. Condition 5, you have high-interest debt. Buying a home while carrying 20+% credit card debt is a mathematical mistake. The guaranteed return of paying off the debt beats any realistic home appreciation scenario.
And here are the 5 conditions where buying is genuinely the stronger financial move. Condition 1, your local price-to-rent ratio is below 15. The market pricing relative to rents makes buying financially compelling in the near term. Condition 2, you are planning to stay 7 or more years. You will clear the break-even, build meaningful equity, and the stability value of ownership compounds over time. Condition 3, the all-in monthly cost is 25% or less of your take-home pay. You have financial breathing room, and the home does not consume your life.
Condition 4, you have 20% down payment, fully funded emergency fund, no high-interest debt, and closing costs covered without depleting your emergency fund. Condition 5, you want the stability, control, and permanence of homeownership, and the numbers support it. Quality of life value is real and valid. Just run the math first, so you go in with eyes open. Here is the decision framework in plain language. Answer these 4 questions. If you cannot answer yes to all 4, you are not ready to buy yet, and renting is genuinely the smarter move for your situation right now. Question 1.
Is the price to rent ratio in my target neighborhood below 20? Question 2. Am I planning to stay at least 5 to 7 years? Question 3. Will my all-in monthly cost be 25% or less of my take-home pay? Question 4. Do I have 20% down plus emergency funds still funded plus closing costs? If all 4 are yes, buying is likely the right move for you financially. If one or more is no, renting while you work toward those conditions is the smarter play. And while you rent, your down payment can grow in a high-yield savings account or investment account rather than sitting idle.
Renting is not throwing money away, and buying is not automatically building wealth. Both are tools, and like any tool, they work brilliantly in the right application and cause damage in the wrong one. Run the price-to-rent ratio for your market this week. It takes 10 minutes, and it will tell you more about your local market than any amount of generic advice. The rent versus buy decision calculator in the description lets you plug in your local numbers: home price, rent, down payment, interest rate, how long you plan to stay, and gives you a clear break-even timeline and verdict. Link below. Subscribe for a new video every Tuesday and Thursday. Rich future you. Make the decision with your eyes open.